Hi everyone, John Kotnarowski here once more in another video for the National University of Science and Technology, NUST MISiS, Academic Writing University Center. As has been discussed in earlier videos, publishing research should be thought of as making a contribution to the ongoing dialogue in your field or discipline. It is the same as adding a well thought out, clearly articulated contribution to a conversation about your topic. Ultimately, the focus of all research is problem solving, and collaboration and teamwork often expedite this process. Since there is a certain give and take involved in any conversation or critical discussion, the most useful contributions are made in such a way where the primary writer or researchers will receive credit for his or her unique and original contribution, but will also leave room for others to add to the dialogue, to build off points made earlier, to refine them and reinterpret them. But how can this balance be achieved? One way to do this is through the effective use of hedging. As a general introduction to the concept of hedging and different ways to hedge your claims, this video will provide the following information: a clear definition of the concept of hedging, a clear explanation about the important role that hedging plays in producing effective academic writing, and 3 basic hedging strategies that you can use in your own academic writing. The definition of hedging has evolved over the years. In 1972, Lankoff defined it as words whose job it is to make things more or less fuzzy. It's probably safe to assume that he was using the word fuzzy to talk about words that can make a statement less clear or absolute, and not words that help expressions grow hair. In 1995, noted EAP writing specialist Ken Hyland wrote that hedging is the expression of tentativeness and possibility in language use, and that it represents an absence of certainty and is used to describe any linguistic item or strategy employed to indicate a lack of commitment to the truth value of an accompanying proposition or a desire not to express that commitment categorically. In more basic terms, this definition of hedging defines it as a collection of words or language strategies that allow a writer to make a statement without implying that he or she believes it to be 100% true or the ultimate solution or answer. Let's take a look at one example to help clarify Hyland's definition. The first sentence reads, "The issues highlighted in this study are applicable to all participating institutions." In this sentence, the writer is making the claim that a certain group of issues applies to all the institutions within a study. The second sentence reads, "The issues highlighted in this study may be applicable to many participating institutions." In this sentence, the writer makes the hedged claim that the group of issues could possibly apply to some of the institutions, but not necessarily to all. To provide one final expert definition, let's look at Crompton's 1997 conception of hedging, which states that it is a linguistic strategy allowing the author to avoid committing to the absolute truth of a proposition or statement or claim. Again, we can more clearly illustrate this definition with an example. The first sentence reads, "Government support will assure the spread of new knowledge and the skills necessary to use the internet to thousands of people in rural areas." The second sentence reads, "Government support may help with the spread of new knowledge and the skills necessary to use the internet to thousands of people in rural areas." As with the first example, we see the hedged sentence allowing the writer to put some distance between himself and the absoluteness of the claim. So, in the end, we can see that hedging strategies are writing techniques that allow a writer-researcher the flexibility to make a claim without making it an absolute or categorical one. So why is hedging an important strategy in academic writing? As we've mentioned before, academic writing is the language we use to convey answers to research questions. We answer these questions by creating arguments. These arguments are based on claims made by an individual which are then supported with evidence. Hedging is a helpful part of this process because oftentimes, writer-researchers develop good answers to research questions, but feel like they are not the best, only, or most complete answer. They are also prepared for other writer-researchers to raise objections or point out problems with their answers or research. Hedging allows writer-researchers to anticipate and address possible opposition to his or her claims while still contributing something new to the ongoing dialogue in a research field. Academic writing is a balance of facts and evaluation. The writer-researcher tries to take the data and facts they've uncovered as fully, accurately, and objectively as possible, while also showing how they themselves interpret this information. With this in mind, we can better understand why writers often say X may be the cause of Y, rather than X causes Y, to show the current state of knowledge on a subject, and to tell the reader that while they feel strongly about their answer to the research question, they also realize that it is not the end of the dialogue. So, to review, hedging is important because it allows the writer-researcher to 1. Submit new arguments and claims into an ongoing dialogue while also acknowledging that there might be other, equally valid, or perhaps better or more effective points of view. 2. Make a new contribution to their field in a productive and cooperative way. 3. Have the flexibility to avoid making absolute or categorical statements which claim that the writer-researcher has found the perfect and only answer. Hedging allows the writer-researcher to offer something new and establish him or herself as a possible authority on a topic, while leaving room for other voices and perspectives. 4. Participate in ongoing conversations in fields where new evidence generated all the time, and it's almost impossible to stay completely up to date on the current state of affairs. As Skelton put it in 1988, it is by means of the hedging system of a language that a user distinguishes between what he or she says and what he or she thinks about what he or she says. Without hedging, the world is purely propositional, a rigid and rather dull place where things either are the case or are not. The hedging system allows language to be more flexible and render the world more subtle. To put it another way, hedging gives writer-researchers the flexibility to avoid always having to use black or white language and to access a whole palette of different shades of gray. Hedging encourages and allows writer-researchers to be what Skelton calls confidently uncertain in their claims. This term means we need to accurately state how precise we can be when doing something, and to feel okay with being imprecise, especially when absolute precision is very difficult, if not impossible, to achieve. Let's finish the video by discussing 3 different ways to hedge the claims in your own academic writing. These strategies include using lexical verbs, using adverbial constructions, and using modal verbs. Lexical verbs are any kind of verb other than auxiliary verbs. Some lexical verbs used for hedging include indicate, suggest, propose, appear, assume, estimate, argue, tend to, and doubt. Let's take a look at an example of some lexical verbs doing some hedging. The first sentence reads, The study proves the link between smoking and lung disease. The second hedged sentence reads, the study indicates or the study suggests a possible link between smoking and lung disease. As with our earlier examples, the lexical verbs indicates and suggests in the second sentence allow the writer-researcher to share the findings of a study without making the claim that these findings are absolute. Adverbs are often used to promote hedged claims as well. Some of the most common adverbs used include often, quite, almost, usually, occasionally, sometimes, certainly, possibly, probably, and clearly. Let's take a look at an example of hedging using adverbs. The first sentence reads, the number of unemployed people will continue to rise as the poor economic situation persists. The second sentence reads, the number of unemployed people will probably continue to rise as the poor economic situation persists. Once again, the adverb probably in the second sentence allows the writer-researcher to share data without making the claim that his or her findings are absolute. A very common technique for hedging claims is through the use of modal verbs. Modal verbs include the auxiliary verbs must, might, will, would, should, may, can, and could. Modal verbs precede another verb and do not have subject-verb agreement or take the infinitive to before the next verb. They can change the perspective of a sentence, making requests more polite or indicating a stronger logical possibility of a claim. As Cassandra Rosado of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign notes, when hedging claims, modals are most often used to express the logical probability of a claim. In this role, modals can be ranked according to strength as indicated in the following table. As we can see via the table, if we make a claim using the modal verb must, we're implying a stronger logical relationship than a claim using the modal verb might. Let's take a look at one more example. The first sentence reads, this and subsequent studies led to the conclusion that the GTP itself must be the elusive base, and therefore to the proposal of the GTP as base mechanism. The second sentence reads, this and subsequent studies led to the conclusion that the GTP itself may be the elusive base, and therefore to the proposal of the GTP as base mechanism. As with our other examples, the modal verb may in the second sentence allows the writer-researcher to share a conclusion without stating that the findings are absolute. In academic writing, authors often have to be very cautious about the way they present their hypotheses, results, and conclusions. To indicate less than 100% certainty, they hedge, which means to avoid a categorical or absolute statement. They do so for two reasons. One, to tone down their statements in order to reduce the threat of opposition from other researchers, and two, to avoid overstating their results as they are aware that theirs may not be the final word on a given issue. Since the certainty of any research is hardly ever 100%, the use of hedging, unless overdone, is a part of academic writing. It can be done in a variety of ways, including through the use of modal verbs and different adverbial constructions. I hope this video has helped to improve your understanding of what people mean when they talk about hedging in academic writing. If you have any questions, please feel free to bring them to the experts at the Academic Writing University Center.